Hello, everybody. Welcome to the match reaction for Arsenal 7, PSV 1. Make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and all that kind of great and wonderful stuff. Also, let me know if you guys can hear me. Like I'm telling you guys, the comments are on this side, and you guys are here. So when I'm looking down, I'm actually looking for you guys. So, yeah. What a day. I don't think anybody predicted that. There will be some, person saying, I told you we would just. No, I don't think anybody predicted that we would beat PSV like they stole something, and in the circumstances in which we are in. But I do think that, again, results like this do present a little bit of like talking points, a lot to talk about. And, I had, mentally written down some points, and stuff. So we'll go through that and do like a little match reaction and all of that, So yeah, I'm pretty like shocked, but at the same time, like I think we had spoken about this yesterday. This team is not bad. This team is nowhere near as poor as it's been playing. And, for everybody that was like, yeah, but we're missing all of our best attackers. We're literally missing Saka. And we just needed to figure out a way of playing to create more chances and be more clinical in the final third. Like, I get it that missing players means that the level drops, but it should never drop as much as it did the last couple of games. So now that we've seen this, we know that this team can play much better. They also looked much fresher after having a week off because we weren't in the FA Cup. So you take that into consideration. But this team is so much better when they just play attacking football. Nothing about today said that we were going to play with the handbrake on. We definitely conceded some chances, but overall, we were the much better side. And when we play attacking and we create more chances, we're such a better side. We will beat teams like this 9 times out of 10 when we play like this. When we play like we are scared to death to concede, we make really poor teams look really fucking good, So, yeah, I think not having a mid or low block also helped. But ultimately, I think that we just look like we wanted to play attacking football. And now we can see with the group that we have, there is a higher level of football that can be played. That doesn't mean it's going to be able to be applied to every single game because, of course, we'll get into the Prem and people will sit back. But ultimately, we saw a team that was like desperate to score goals, that wasn't afraid to concede chances. But equally, players were actually trying things and it wasn't a fucking emergency every time we gave up the ball. In the final third, I saw several times players try things, try to take someone on. Ball got taken away, tried to make a pass in between the lines. It got cut out. But the main difference between what's been happening in the last couple of weeks versus today was that everybody got back and got into their shape. And every single chance that or every single time we went forward and gave up the ball didn't result in a dangerous opportunity for PSV. And so, like we've kind of been talking about over the last couple of days, it should never be the case that your attackers are afraid to try risky things because they're afraid to lose the ball. That should never be the case. I think we tricked ourselves, or y'all tricked yourselves into thinking that that's normal, but it's literally not. It's literally not. We should feel confident enough that if we keep attacking, something will come off. And that's essentially what happened. We didn't get scared after they, hit the bar. We went up there and then we went and scored, and then it was like over from there. So, yeah, it was a really good display in terms of Arsenal moving, passing, moving, using the space, guys getting forward, creating overloads, everybody being positive and trying to attack. I haven't seen Arsenal play that well in a long time in terms of the actual football, not just the result. Like, there's a big difference between, we've had big results this season. We had a big result against West Ham away, big result against Sporting, big result against Manchester City. That's probably the best football that we've played probably this season in terms of just playing like you have some sense. It was enjoyable to watch. It wasn't stuffy. It wasn't stiff. People didn't look like they were going to a funeral. We weren't relying on set pieces. It was really fucking nice. And there were some good individual performances as well, which we'll get into. And then obviously we'll talk about the potential red card that people think that we should have gotten or whatever. I'll give you guys my take on that. But before we get into that, I want to go through some of your comments. Let's see. Jordan says, Jess, it seems Andrea Berta has already started applying the pressure on Arteta. Shamaria says, I'm really hoping Arteta lets the shackles off, and this wasn't just down to how shit PSV is. Boy says, I just think PSV were horrendous. That Marino goal isn't happening against a good team. They're just ambitious with their football despite being bad. I think that's a little disingenuous to say that. Like, I mean, they're a Champions League level side, and we've played really poor sides this season, and Leicester, really poor sides, and like that would never play in the Champions League, no matter how highly you think of the Premier League. Leicester is never playing in that competition. Southampton is never playing in that competition. Everton are never playing in the competition. We made all of those teams look much better than what they actually are. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous. I think you have to play what you have in front of you. And I think ultimately, like, what we could control, despite them not being this great side or whatever, we did what we needed to do. King Killmonger says that was a massacre. Albert says boys did well. Real Madrid will be the real test. I mean, they're the best team on the planet, so it's like, is it a test or is it not? We're coming up. This will be one of the first times this season that we'll be coming up against a side that we're not meant to get beyond. This will actually be the first time in Europe in a long time that I can think of that we're not meant to, like, when it comes up that it's us versus Real Madrid, we will not be considered favorites. So I don't know if it's necessarily like this huge test. I think it's more just like, we'll definitely get to see how we measure up against the best of the best. If people are having conniptions, if we don't get by Real Madrid, I understand, because it's like, I'm upset, blah, 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 but they're literally a better side than us. So I do expect us to struggle, especially without Saka. So yeah. South Gunner says, maybe a dream. I don't believe it's real. Reggie says, Jess, this requires a very deep analysis, as I didn't recognize that team. And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, like, this is why it's so frustrating when we're always blaming like referees and blaming outside forces and injuries. It's not like, even if we had played a better side, I still feel like we would have played this style of football. It's more about the style than the opposition or whatever. I'm hoping that we get back to a type of football that has the good defensive parts of it, but allows the attackers to be a lot more free, allows them to take more risks. That doesn't have anything to do with PSV. And if the only time we can play that way is against PSV, well, then it's not our style of play. Your style of play should be how you play 90% of the time. So I would like for that to be the 90% of the time and not what we've been watching. I think there's several factors. Like I already said, the week-long break helped. We know it helped. They looked a lot fresher. Not having to play against a mid-low block, that also helped. And we just acted like we had some sense. Players were passing through the lines. Players were trying to take riskier passes. When somebody made a run, we actually passed it on time. Actually people were making runs. People like, Declan and Trossard were making runs into the box. There's so many times when we play when we don't make any runs. We're just all just like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? It's regardless of the opposition, our style of play was much different today. And that's why I never really take in this whole like, well, injuries don't mean one, we've been playing the stiffy style for a long time, even without injuries. But injuries would never make you play the way that we've played recently. That is a mentality thing, that is a managerial thing, that's a coaching thing. And we need to, I guess, maybe in this week, Arteta tried to figure out a way to get us into better goal scoring positions. When you have not as good attackers, the only way to counteract that is to create more chances, So creating less chances for not as good forwards is not going to work. So I think it's mostly that. PSV are not the best opposition, but genuinely what we could control, we did well with that. So I have to give them credit for that. Let's see. Victor says, I'd rather play Real than Atleti. We cannot beat Atleti over two legs. They are our direct counter. I think with Real Madrid, we just have to wait until we get there. I think the best thing about this result is that in the home stretch, we won't have to feel like we need to play out of our skin. They will probably like rest players or, it's 7-1, it's done. Then once, it's done, then we can see like what's going to happen, who's available, all that kind of stuff. So many things can change from now until then, so I wouldn't think too far into that, like who would I rather have? We made sure that we got there. So it's just like, let's just chill for a second. Let's not think too far ahead. Brandon says, I have to salute Saliba and Gabriel. These guys are real defenders. Also, Raya is proving that he is the best goalkeeper. And often, like in games like this is why I don't really stress out that much about, if we were to play a more attacking style, we have a much better defense than we did in the 2022-2023 season, where I think Arteta got shook by the amount of like chances we were giving up and the amount of like wide open opportunities we were giving to the opposition because we were so front-footed. Now, obviously, we had Gabriel and Saliba, but back then, Gabriel was still good, but he was not this Gabriel. Gabriel has went like several levels up since then. Saliba is more solidified. We have a much better goalkeeper. Between White and Timber, you have a really good, and we need to talk about Miles Lewis-Skelly, but he is 100% our starting left back, and he is like a phenomenal player. I know that he had to be taken off because, he got the yellow card, and we'll talk about whether or not he should have been sent off. But the pass that the way that Saliba put him in a terrible position before, I think it was our first goal, and he wiggled out of it, which is he's pretty much one of our only players that can receive the ball under pressure and that much pressure and get out. And he does it consistently. He passes it to Declan Rice. Declan Rice does his thing, and then he crosses it, perfect cross, and then into Timber. Miles Lewis-Skelly is our starting left back. So our defense is so much better than it was in 22-23. You can take more risks. We were kind of open in this game. We didn't play shackled in our positions. We weren't trying to white knuckle the ball. And even though they got opportunities and we had a little bit of luck go our way, ultimately they had to defend us as well. And they didn't do a very good job at it. This is not even a great attack that we had, So I think Arteta can take more risks with the group that he has. And I would like to see it, because once you see something, then you're like, okay, why can't we just apply it to every single game? Let's see. Nico says, interesting how Arsenal fans are quiet about the ref today. Jagoon says he's a baller, but he needs to chill. Very lucky today. I will say that, honestly, I don't think that the first yellow that he was given was a yellow. I think that's just a foul. I think the referee was like, not, I don't say desperate, but like he was like, that's like a very like harsh, like it just wasn't a yellow to me. Like that first one, I thought it was soft, like it really was. And then it was basically corrected by him not sending him off. I think there was maybe a little bit of a thought process there from the referee that the first one was probably a little soft, and that's kind of how you get into those situations as a referee where now the opposition fans are going to be upset with you, is when you call a soft yellow, and then it would be harsh to send him off on the second one when the first one was a little subjective or a little sus. Then you don't give the red, and then everybody's like, well, what the fuck? The first one to me is just not a yellow. It's just a foul. It's not that big of a deal. But then that's always what happens, is in that second yellow comes really fast, and then you have to make a decision. So yeah, I think Miles Lewis Skelly is lucky because, the second one was a yellow, definitely, and should have been the sending off. But the first one was super suspect to me. I was like, you don't need to give that. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't nothing. It was just a regular ass foul. It just wasn't that deep. So, and I'll be really honest, like in terms of like getting a little bit of luck and rub of the green, the amount of times this season and seasons gone past that I've seen players have a yellow and not get sent off against us because the referee used common sense and, didn't want to, screw up the game and all that kind of stuff or whatever. I'm taking that. I'm not about to sit here and be like, he should have been sent off. No, because referees need to use their subjectivity and their common sense. Otherwise, there's no reason to have them out there. Then we could just have robots do the job. We need somebody that understands the temperature of the game and can kind of see like how things are gonna at that stage in the game. You don't need to send off Miles Lewis Skelly. You don't need to, and he kind of corrected the initial mistake by not sending him off because he gave a too early yellow on something that was really kind of like, it was super soft. So it's like, yeah, that's why you need that's why the human aspect of things really makes a difference. But most of the time in the Premier League, they're just bozos, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's whatever, the amount of times that the first time we touch somebody, it's a yellow, but then somebody can do a leg breaker on us or something, and they don't even call a foul, or they call a foul and no yellow. I don't give a fuck. This is our rub of the green. Just like every time I watch us play, there are players getting the rub of the green on their side. It is what it is, Nico says Partey is a ticking time bomb, reminding me of Zinchenko after he fell off. Victor says our left back situation is really good. We have a great defensive left back in MLS, and attacking wise, Calafiori is really good. That was the striker's finish. But I'll say, I think that's a little, maybe almost doing Miles Lewis Skelly a little dirty. I know you're trying to prop both of them up, but I think where Calafiori is really attacking, I think Miles Lewis Skelly had a really good, he was the pre-assist. I know they don't show up on stats, but the pre-assist before, Rice puts it in for Timber, and then he gets the assist for Wanyeri. He scored a goal against Manchester City, so where I think Calafiori is getting all these plaudits for being this attacking, I think Miles Lewis Skelly almost deserves more because he adds a lot of GA to our game still, but he's not getting ripped on the other end, so I don't think you're trying to do that. But MLS to me may not be as much of a goal scorer, but make no mistake, he makes a difference in the final third, whether it's through his passing, ball carrying, now it's passes into the box. We'll talk about the finish from Wanyeri and the record that he broke today. But I think we do have really good options. I do agree with you on that. But I think you're selling Miles Lewis Skelly just a little bit short when it comes to his attacking prowess. He can add so much as well. And I know that's not what you were trying to do. Nico says, oh, I read that one. Colin says, I'm worried we would be linking up with Real Madrid. Those front lines are scary quick. Vince says Prem refs refer with hatred. I was just pointing out the duality. Exactly. I know what you were trying to say. Kimberly says Partey sabotage because of no contract extension. Listen, there's not much I need to say about the penalty. I don't think those get called very often. I think most of those usually don't get called. Maybe they should. So it's one of those where it's like, I don't usually see it given. So I'm a little perturbed that it's getting given against us. But all that grappling and, elbowing people in the face and stuff like that, I think if it was on the other end, we'd want that. So, it's neither here nor there. But I think the main difference between how we usually play and how we played today is that right after halftime, instead of sitting back and trying to save that 2-goal advantage, we just blew them away, And going back to what Boy said, that PSV are just a terrible team. I'm sorry, but like some of the teams that we play against in the Premier League are shit. And we make them look good by not attacking and not rising above them. We're always kind of lowering our level to them. We'd make a lot more Premier League sides look like PSV if we just fucking attacked and played like we had some sense, you know? John says, "Hey, Jess, hello to you as well." Nuances says, "If he hadn't put his hand in his face, ref wouldn't have given it." Yeah, it's one of those. I've seen people elbow our players and flail and all that kind of stuff, and it's rarely ever given. I think it probably should be given, but in the Premier League, we don't really see it unless it's for teams that they want it to go for. You know what I mean? So it is a penalty. It's just not something that we're used to seeing given. It's one of those, it's one of those. Just like, who got socked in the head? Gabrielle? One of our players got punched in the head this season and they got a penalty. We got a penalty off of that. So, and we rarely see that given. If a goalkeeper comes out, misses the ball, and socks you in the head, most of the time you don't get anything, So it's one of those where it's like, yeah, well, you know. Um, Chemist Saint says PSV beat Juventus. They are far from a bad side. Maybe they were naive in their tactics. And I think this is why most teams don't attack us. You know what I mean? Most teams understand that even if, we don't have our best players, if they open up, this is kind of what can happen to you. So this is why your Evertons and your West Hams and these types of teams sit back on us, because it's much more likely that you'll get a result. Now, is it weird that we haven't found anything for the deep mid block? Yeah, but this is definitely why people don't open up against us. Like it was just wild. Trini says, "Great win today. PSV came to play lesson. You don't come to play against the Arsenal." Let's see. Pixel says, "Perfect performance today. I have no criticism whatsoever." TJ says, "Hey, Jess, hoping to see you on Forever Arsenal soon. Enjoy your energy you and Jordan give." Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I don't know if or when I'll be back, but if I get an opportunity, I'll definitely bring the noise. You know how I am. Mike says, "Bruno G elbowed against Newcastle. Most obvious thing ever not given." It's just one of those things where, most of the time we don't end up having to talk about the refereeing decisions if we do what we need to do. And I think that's essentially like what happened today. Whether you thought we should have had somebody sent off, to me, it's karma. It's just one of those things where the universe just works in our favor. A referee sends off Miles Lewis-Skelly for fuck all, and then maybe this one should have sent him off. But I do think the first yellow was soft. So it happens in football. That's just the reality. We don't talk about it as much if we do what we need to do. And yeah. So Sib says Calafiori is more dangerous than Sterling in the final third. When Sterling came on and lost the ball that first time, like he was going up against Perisic, and he just you could just knew he wasn't going to get beyond him. I was like, fun's over. Now, it turned out that fun wasn't over because Calafiori scored late, but it just felt like the balloon just went, like he's just not it, is he, Yes, he did play today for a couple little minutes. It's just wild, how bad he is, but it is what it is. Victor says, to chalk this down to PSV just being bad is disingenuous, especially due to the fact that this is the biggest away win in UCL history. So that is one of the records that were broken today. Biggest away victory in our history, so well done us. Also, Ethan is the youngest player to score in a knockout round in the Champions League. So well done to him as well. I do want to speak on his performance because I think because we had so many different goal scorers, maybe it will be kind of like lost in it. But He's so good. Like, I don't even feel like it's like young Ethan or young MLS. I just feel like they're a part of the team and they're very real. Like they still need a little bit of protection, but for the most part, it's not like they don't play like children. I think the one thing that you see from Ethan that like MLS doesn't really struggle with is the physicality. Ethan sometimes gets bumped off of the ball and is like, "Where's the foul?" You're not going to get those, in the first team. That being said, what he gives you in terms of just instinct, um, going inside, going outside, taking like the smart decision. He usually makes the best and smartest decision, which is what we're used to with Saka. I think the biggest difference between him and Saka is that I just think that maybe just he has that little bit of like that extra thing in the final third where it just comes very natural to him. And some of his like deliveries and passes to me are just like, yeah, you can tell that he's a creator as well because he just has that like the weight of pass, like the way that the ball spins into the box. That one cross that he put in for Gabriel. Gabriel should do so much better with that. I don't know if he needs to do a diving header or if he needs to do, I don't know. But that ball into the box is what I'm looking forward to an actual striker getting on the end of at some stage because it was perfect to the back post. It wasn't too anything. It was just, and it just evaded everybody. I think it was like a quick free kick. Odegaard passed it to Ethan, and it was just, he just does things that are just so, it just comes so natural to him. Where I feel like a lot of our attacking movements and the way that people play in the attack is a little bit forced or it looks not natural to them. So, his performance, I mean, just the amount of times that he took shots, the amount of times that he forced the issue. He's just somebody that's like a force of nature, and his goal really showed that. He made a run that you don't see like half of our team making from out to in, from the outside post to the inside post, coming to Miles Lewis Skelly sees him coming and just wallops it into the net. Doesn't fuck around and lean back, doesn't hit it wide and then like, oh, how did I miss? Just wallops it in the back of the net. Perfect connection, perfect run, perfect timing. It is just so nice to see somebody in the final third with just like a natural instinct to attack. It's not forced. He's not overthinking it. He just gets it. When he gets his physicality up to the point where he can really, go like bar for bar with the defenders that are coming up against him, it's over. It's over. It's so over. Like it really, really is because he's something else. Like he's something else. So I didn't want to get through this without like really talking about his performance because I think almost everyone played good. But I do think that like him and Miles Lewis Skelly are something else. Like that's all I'm gonna say. They're really fucking good, man. Tony says next is Manchester United. You guys know this is my cup final. I don't care what shape we're in and what shape they're in. It has to be a dub. I don't care who we have to rob, steal, cheat, anything. They are in the bottom of the barrel. They are as low as they can go. But this season, we've been the team that gets you back on track, So I am shitting it, even though I shouldn't be. I really shouldn't be. I couldn't. I can't. Like I really, I really can't. He's just. Oh, I cannot stand Manchester United. They give me the willies. They give me the absolute willies. So we'll see. Android says when Yeri's shot for goal was defo world class, and I think we just struggle with striking the ball. We don't have any good ball strikers except for Miles Lewis Skelly is one of our best ball strikers, and then probably like Trossard has it, but like everybody else has like that really like weak ankle, and it's like, oh my gosh, will you lock your shit, man? Shamara says, and Winery will save us. Winning Way says Calafiori is wacky. I mean, he's an anomaly. He really is. Like, he just reminds me of he reminds me a lot of like Gavardiol in terms of how we use him and what we want from him. I just think that he's a little bit more overt with it, where Gavardiol's a little bit more stiff. Calafiori loves getting into the final third. He thinks he's a striker. He scores some crazy goals. I just think he's a center back. I think the speed in the Premier League is getting to him in those wide areas. And so where I love what he adds going forward, I feel a lot more confident with MLS in those wide areas defending against those quick wingers. So, you know, left-sided center back or striker for you, buddy. You know, those are your positions. Pixel Pioneer says Arteta should get more ballers from the academy. They are better than his signings. Camel says, I hate Manchester United more than our local rival Spurs, to be honest. I do too, but I think a lot of that is because I don't know any Spurs fans and I didn't grow up in London, North London. So I think if you went to school with a lot of Spuds and you have family members that follow that club and all that kind of stuff, you feel it differently. I don't have anybody in my house that's going to be bantering me if we lose to Spurs, so I can understand why it's a little bit different for me. For me, it's definitely Manchester United. I hate them down. Jordan says, I love Calafiore. His energy and attitude is great. We have to remember he's basically a kid. Exactly. Kwame says, hi, Jess. What a fantastic display. I'm so proud of our squad. I think we can lift this now. See, we need to relax just a little bit. Listen, where I do agree that they deserve a lot of credit for today, and where I think that this is a good direction to go in terms of now we're going to expect us to actually play good football because we did today, and we can attack and we can score goals. That's great. But this team is very inconsistent, and the likelihood, like, it's very likely that we will end up playing the best team in the world, the holders, Real Madrid. And so it's still unlikely that we will win the Champions League, and we just have to take it a day at a time. The way that we played today was great. But PSV and Real Madrid are completely different things. And so let's just see how we do in the weekend. Let's see how we do against Manchester United away from home. Let's see how we do, and let's just take it a day at a time, because we just know Real Madrid have that unlimited heritage ATM that they can pull from, where even if they're not playing well, even if they're at a deficit, even if everybody has the flu on the day, they will find a way to win, and we don't have that inevitability, and we also don't have our best player. So I think we just have to take one step at a time, one step at a time. Winning Way says Tierney deserves to stay, especially with all the injuries. I mean, Tierney's not going to go anywhere now, but at the end of the season, I think it's more than okay for him to leave. He should. He's making 100 and something thousand pounds a week. He's very injury prone. And maybe it's more the case that maybe you want that type of profile versus just being Tierney, because he's just the amount. We don't need 20 left backs. We have too many. And I think he actually, more than anything, deserves to go back to Scotland. I think he already has a pre-contract decided with Celtic. That's where he needs to go, and we need to move on. But, it's nice to see players that kind of don't have a future still playing for the badge. And so we're a very Disney club. We're very much so like connected to the story. And it just would be so great if Tierney went on all these loans and then came back and lifted us. And that's not really how it works. He's going to go to Celtic, and I think it's fine for him to go there. But he, it's nice to see him, Victor says we can't beat Man United and Newcastle in a domestic cup, but we're going to lift the UCL. Yeah, I think as a football fan, that's how it goes. When you lose, it's just like the worst thing in the world. But when you win, it's like we can beat anybody. And so I'm not buying into the fact that we're just going to win something, but I do like what I saw, and it proves that the way that we were playing didn't really have that much to do with the injuries. It's more about the way we apply ourselves, and we need to apply ourselves a lot better. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Kwame says, Mike, our youth is phenomenal. Arsenal Revolution says, are you Arteta in now? Well, no, I'm not like a child, so I think basically like Arteta in and Arteta out is more of like a thing to put people on certain sides so that they can go up against each other and be like super annoying. You guys know my stance on Mikel. I told you guys yesterday, so if he doesn't win any trophies, I feel like we're more within our right to question his position. And personally, if I had my druthers, I would not keep a manager around that hasn't won anything in 5 seasons. but Arteta in, Arteta out on the basis of one match here, one match there is very, very, very preschool, So I don't know where they do that at, but here we talk in nuance in the context and we look at all the factors, and it's not just Arteta in, Arteta out with our mouth foaming. Like, it's just, like, who cares? You guys know that you guys know my stance on it. You guys know where I sit, but I'm not going to be doing like, I'm Arteta out and put it in my bio and shit. Like, I'm not doing that. Kwame says, Jess, what do you think of Barta? We did a show on it yesterday. I'm gassed. If you look at, first of all, we getting a striker. Okay. This guy brought like 20 strikers to Atletico Madrid, and a lot of them were really good strikers, so we're getting a striker. That's one thing that we know for sure. Lots of experience. Actually, Alex from A Different Knock did a really good video on this. So if you don't go back and watch my stream, I highly suggest you watch his breakdown of it. I think he did a really good job looking at, the different factors of like, communication, experience, And I think the biggest takeaway from his video, and something that I also feel like is important, is that even though he didn't get everything right at Atletico, one thing that he does have is he likes to take risks. And some of his big risks have paid off and some didn't. But we are in a place in our progression where we fully stalled and we don't take any risks. There's no football people. There's too many lawyers, too many people thinking analytically. And I think in order to win things, you need to take risks. Nobody wins things by being safe. They just don't. I've never seen anybody win anything being safe. You always take risk, calculated risk. And so I think getting somebody that's not afraid to take big swings, not afraid to get short-term solutions, not afraid to, spend a little big here, or find a little gem. He has such a wide range of skills and such a long CV of like positive things. And then also when shit goes left, he's able to recoup a fee, which is something that we're never able to do. So I like that he'll be a big voice in the room, but he's also going to be quiet in front of the media. You don't have any interviews from him, really talking to the camera, which I love. I don't want to see him in front of the camera. I think there's too many people talking, too much yep, 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 and not enough like actual on the pitch stuff going on. And he's supposedly a no nonsense guy. And I think we don't need any more nonsense, so that's kind of my short and long, of the Barta stuff. Kimberly says, I just need someone to challenge Arteta. A lot of groupthink is happening at the club. Agreed. Pixel says, Mikel deserves praise today. I don't know how he coached that win, spot on almost everything. I think it was he got a week in on the training ground with the players and they got a little rest. I think that really helps. And I think he just, in Europe, we tend to be a little bit more open. I don't know if he's just like afraid in the champion or in the Premier League to do the same thing, but it just felt like he got a good coaching session in and they got a little bit of a rest. The whole thing is like, I can give him credit for today, but if it doesn't continue on for the next couple of games, then I'll question it. There's no reason why against Manchester United and Chelsea, we shouldn't be able to play good football. Trini says PSV had the wrong tactic. Cornell says we don't want to be like Man United with firing managers. Arteta is here for 20 years at least. Call me, you guys are talking to each other. I also think Timber's goal built up the confidence and we just kept going. And I think that's a really good point that Kimberly is making, because I was talking to a friend about this the other day, is that one of our bigger faults is not so much getting the first goal. It's about getting the second one that takes the game away from the opposition. And I think what happens is we score one and sit off, or we score one and then miss a really obvious chance. And then, we go into halftime 1-0 and we're all talking about how it should be 4 or 5. Then we concede the dreaded goal and then we draw, or, whatever happens, so I think getting the first goal and then getting the second one pretty quickly after, I think makes a huge difference, because you guys know that second goal, that dagger, once you go 2-0 down early, it's tougher to come back from. And I think we did that. We scored our first goal in the 18th minute, and then we turned around and scored the second goal in the 21st minute. When's the last time you've seen Arsenal do that? Usually it's one goal, and then we're like, what's going on? Why don't we score more? So It was just everything happened perfectly. It wasn't like a super early goal, but it was early enough. When they scored or they were attacking, we didn't panic. They hit the bar, then we turned right around and scored our goal. Then we scored another one immediately after, scored 3 in the first half.
You have an incoming call. The number is 1
Who is
7
calling me?
4 7 2
Hold on.
4 5.
Why are people calling me right now? Okay. But yeah. And then we just kept on scoring and we kept attacking, and we should just continue to attack. Why not? Seems like every game we've lost or drawn this season has been against teams that either sit deep and counter or press high and disrupt our play. If Madrid or Atletico play that way, yeah, we're very prone to dropping points when we play against teams that sit deep and counter. It's kind of like our Achilles heel. I just think that, like, at this stage in the game, we should have a solution for deep blocks, and we don't. And I did want to put something forward, but I'll get to that in just a second. But there was a little wrinkle that I did see that I thought, that maybe if we do this against deep blocks, we will be able to maybe create more chances, so we'll get to that in just a second. But I do want to touch on, at least I don't think it was a spotless performance. I definitely don't think that this is the best I've ever seen him play, but I am happy that Odegaard got 2 goals and assists. I think the second goal obviously is a little bit fortuitous, but the assist that he got for Calafiori's goal for me is something that I really haven't seen from him in a long time in terms of right pass, right time, right everything. Even at the beginning of this game, he was struggling for the touch a little bit in terms of figuring out what direction and like the pass appreciation and stuff like that. But if we want to do anything, and I know this is going to burn some people, but if you want to do anything this season, Odegaard's going to need to play better than he has been playing. And so I'm hoping that he can tack on some good performances after, because he's the captain. Arsenal's going to stay. Arteta's going to stay. And so there's not going to be like this big shift next season where he's not going to play. So our best situation would be if he kind of gets into a little bit of form. And I think that this was a much better performance than I've seen in a while. Is it anywhere near what I expect? No, there's a long way to go, but this was a lot more positive. I got a little worried when he kicked the ground early in the game. I was like, here we go, but it came up, so yeah. So it's not like, everything is all great and well and fine, but I don't want to sit here and pretend like I thought that his performance was awful either. Burmy says, once confidence was achieved, they took advantage. Kwame says, PSV were so pathetic. Osanuga says, this club is the biggest mindfuck. You want me to give up on them? And then they produced that. Jordan says, Real Madrid won't try to go toe-to-toe with us. No team will. They will play a mid or a low block. Pixel Pioneer said, Kala with the bad boy old school finish. Lovely. Johan says, do we get Saka back for Real Madrid if they don't lose Atletico away? I don't know when Saka is going to come back, you guys. Honestly, I think, he'll have been out for a while as well, so I don't know what his fitness will be like. It takes you, it doesn't take footballers forever, but he's been out for a while now, so I'm just going to assume that we're going to go with what we have. Martinelli is actually meant to come back before him, I think, so I don't know, so we'll see what happens, but yeah. Trini says, is this season a failure, Jess? If we don't win anything, yes. Anton Dunn says, please don't rush Saka back. Really good point. And so kind of like something that I wanted to bring up is, one little wrinkle that I've seen now. I do think it's interesting that it took for us to be this decimated for Arteta to try him in midfield, but I know he wasn't super sharp. But if we do get to a point where we need a goal or we want to play a little bit more attacking, or, we're playing up against deep blocks that, are really stubborn and you need somebody to thread the needle, or somebody with a little bit more of a technical ability, why doesn't he just try Zinchenko in midfield a little bit more? We've seen it in the last couple of games. And I'm like, while we're like dire, at this stage, we're in a position where it probably is a real reality that Marino is going to play striker for the rest of the season. Kai Havertz is not coming back. And it seems like Arteta wants a bigger person up there, so I don't see Trossard moving over. So that leaves us one light in midfield. And so instead of bringing on Marino, you don't have that option. Ethan is playing out wide. Why don't you just try Zinchenko in the left 8 a little bit more? He's naturally left-footed. He doesn't have to be in a position where he's like, having to defend too much. But if we're sitting in somebody's half and we need somebody to pick the lock, one of our best technical players, like in terms of being able to pass the ball between the lines, is fucking Zinchenko. So why don't you just use him? He's fucking like just wasting away with, we're paying him 100 and something thousand pounds a week. Just use him. Just try it. Like I thought at the end of the game, I was like, this is an idea that I would like to see more of. It may not be perfect. It's not something that I want to continue beyond this season, but in terms of solutions and when we're going up against a deep block, you don't need 2 DMs. You need to add another attacker in there, so why not utilize somebody that's just wasting away on the bench? I don't understand why he doesn't use him a little bit more, because when we're sitting in other people's box, of course, there's still going to be the very big threat that like the other team is going to get free and counterattack. But the reality is that we're conceding those now. So even if we're like, but we need the battle and duel, we'll have the ball 80% of the time. So if we have the ball 80% of the time against a deep or, mid block, I'm so sorry. I need somebody on the ball that can unpick the lock. Because Declan works in these types of games where it's open at the 8, but when those spaces get condensed and you need to have somebody that has a softer touch, he doesn't have that ability. And so why not just utilize Zinchenko? I don't understand why, but I'm just saying against this doesn't have to be against Real Madrid. That's not what I'm saying. Because I know somebody's like, you want to start Zinchenko against Real Madrid? That's not what I'm saying. But we are going to play some teams that aren't the best teams in the world that are going to sit in a mid to low block. If we are struggling, I would utilize Zinchenko and see, Keenan says, White also helps with breaking teams down, especially when Saka is at right wing. I think we got away with one against a wide open PSV. Zinchenko really helps to unlock things against strong mid block. Arteta needs to be a little bit more flexible when things aren't working. Fair enough. Johan says, just gutted Timber, took a dumb yellow for time wasting. Then I remembered that White is back. Kwame says, just next season we should get Victor Osimhen. Here to There says Marino was actually in the box today and he got a goal just being there today. I think the best thing about Marino is that he wasn't too involved in what was going on in midfield. He was more involved in just getting in the box, trying to get on the end of things. He did a little bit of link up, but it wasn't as weird as it, because honestly, when Marino and Kai try to do this, I'm going to go back and try to create role. No, I just need you to get in the box, get your big ass in the box and get your head on the ball. That's all I want to see. Be there for the crumbs, that kind of stuff, And I think he did a much better job with that today. Again, I get it's PSV and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately, you can only play who's in front of you. And I thought our striker is so much better. This is not prime Jesus from 22-23, where he was playing at DM, but that shit was working. It's not that anymore. We need our 9 in the box, period. Get away from midfield. Stop trying to hold on to the ball. Stop trying to create. Just get in the box and be there for the crumbs. Anton Dunn says, Rice will battle Bellingham if we play Real. I wouldn't trust Partey in that game, to be honest. We'll see what happens. Kwame says, I'm a big fan of Yuri and Timber, a wonderful right back. And I think, honestly, he wanted to do it on Dutch soil. I think that's one of the best displays I've seen from Timber in a long time. And I think, one, he got rest, and two, he was motivated about going up against the Dutch side that he probably had a little beef with back in the day kind of thing, and he got his first Champions League goal, which was a great goal. It was a great header. And so I do want to see him develop a little bit more in the final third. But I think one thing about Timber is that he really does lock down that side. Him and White are very different players, but I do think that we are very blessed in right back, so I'm happy to see White back. And that'll give us a different look. It'll also give Timber an opportunity to rest. It also gives us another option on the left because now Timber is now another option on the left again, which it wouldn't be my first option. I'd still go with MLS and Calafiori. But if something bad were to happen, now you can put Timber on the left. You couldn't do that because there was no other right back. So we have more options again. Victor says Timber was trying to flex on his comrade. He really was, like, and I love that. Kwame says, what a fantastic right back Urian Timber is. Pixel says Timber for player of the season. I think he's on there, but I definitely think it's far and clear. Gabriel. I said what I said. I think some of his goals earlier on in the season were not anywhere near second. He's probably been one of our most consistent players. I think he's been better than Saliba this season, which shows how good he's been. I don't know when we're going to get to the point where we talk about Gabriel being world class, but I think it's Gabriel is our player of the season. Kwame says Winieri is my man of the match. He was really, really good. I don't really see anybody that I don't think had a good game. I think it was variations of good. I don't think Partey was like, besides the penalty he gave away, it really was like a good performance from him too as well. Like when you win 7-1, it's really difficult to like, oh, this person was shit. Like nobody was really shit. Everybody was kind of good, you know? So it's just a positive performance that we could just like wrap in a bow and then see how we play at the weekend, because Arsenal does have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. And, you know, we don't have a great record at Old Trafford. They should be beatable. Bournemouth and these guys are going to Old Trafford and bagging the 3 points. I expect us to as well, but it's always a different game between us. So you never know what you're going to get, you know. Here to There says, totally egregious. Gabriel is our player of the year. He has earned it, his new improved contract. Victor says, Gabriel has been world-class for a while now. It just doesn't get spoken about. It's like people talk about him, but then it's like he still doesn't get the like, they're like, well, Saliba, he's this, he's that, you know, Saka, he's this and that. Gabriel is, he is like, I get that like some people add trophies into it, but I think he can play for any team in the world and he wouldn't look out of place. I definitely don't think that there's a single team that he doesn't get into, really, to be honest. Real Madrid would love to have him right now. You know, he definitely walks into that Bayern side and starts. I think he'd start for Barcelona, you know, so there's not a team in the world that I look at that Gabriel can't get into right now, you know, so, and this has been 2 years of world-class, like, levels, you know, in my opinion. The 22-23 season was the last time we saw those silly mistakes, and he nipped those, and then these last 2 seasons, he's been the better of the 2 center backs, in my opinion. And that just shows how good he's been, because we know Saliba is world class. So why can't we just say Gabriel is world class? Like, why does it feel so weird? You know, it's like he definitely is, you know? Keenan says, I think Gabriel is already world class. I think people were downgrading him because of thinning hair, looking fresh nowadays. You know, I totally agree with this, because I feel when you don't have hair, people talk about you differently. You know, I think pretty privilege is definitely a thing. And it's the same reason why I think people don't rate Brian Mbomo as much as they should. He could play for a top 4 team. You know, he could play for a Liverpool. He could, you know, play for us, you know, but he's bald. So people act like he's a fucking scrub. Like, you know, I think there is pretty privilege there, you know. He got those plugs, and, you know, now Gabriel, I think people are like, yeah, he's kind of good now. Johnny D says Arteta didn't coach this match, obviously, because the team wasn't over coached, unlike other games. I think he did. This is the problem with Mikel. If he had always been this guy, if he had always been this pragmatic manager, then I would say, yeah, what is this team? Who coached this team? But because we saw 2 seasons, the 21-22 season, it gets forgotten because of how like dark the end of it was. But we were not a negative pragmatic team that season. We tried to attack. We weren't as good as we were the season after that, but there was a like skeleton of what we tried to do that ended up being the 2022-2023 season. What he has become in these last 2 seasons is not the person that he is. This is how Arteta wants to play. He's just scared as fuck. He's not this guy. He's not. He's just scared. Like I said, I think he needs to go to therapy and talk about the trauma that he suffered at the end of the that first season that we challenged, because he has turned into a completely different person, abandoned his principles and his ideas to be something because he felt like, I guess, like he failed in that season. And so maybe he took it too hard, but he genuinely was a couple of players away from being further along than we are now, So, yeah, he's just, yeah. Victor says, I call it the Mbomo effect. Some players are underrated because of the aesthetic or lack thereof. Saida says, if Gabriel was putting these consistent performances for Real Madrid, he would have already been called world class. The trophy talk is valid to an extent, but it's not his fault our attack can't score. Yeah, I said at the end of last season that him and, Saliba and whoever was playing at fullback, Ben White, they could look at the rest of the team and said, y'all lost, not us. You lost, not us, because they had a title winning season. They scored goals, they kept clean sheets, Raya had freaking golden glove and all that kind of stuff. I get the trophy conversation, but there are a lot of players that haven't really won anything that get elevated to that very quickly. And I feel like Gabriel should be there now. Let's see. So yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. Johnny says, get real. It's nothing to do with coaching. It's all in the players' minds. They had no pressure today. They are world class when pressure is on. Arteta doesn't matter what he tells them. Arteta is not scared. They are. You'll see. Next manager, they will be worse. They will shit the bed against Madrid, and you'll call Arteta again when it's nothing to do with him. I don't know. I think anybody that thinks that coaching doesn't matter, I don't know, then why do we have somebody on the sideline being paid 17 million a year to not be the difference between when we play well and when we don't? Obviously coaching comes into it. They would not have played in the way that we've been playing for 2 seasons now if Mikel wanted them to, like if Mikel didn't want them to. If you just think that they've just been playing pragmatically and much different than they did the season that we first challenged, and Arteta just is allowing them to play this way and doesn't make any changes and it's not on him, then we just think of football completely different. Completely different. Arteta has soldiers. Everybody, they're pretty much like they're coached to a T. So they're not doing things that Arteta do. Like, this is a completely different way of playing. Completely different. They were just saying that that's how we always approach a game, but depending on who we're playing, we get scared and don't attack, then fair enough. But yeah, no, we just think of it way different. I think it just doesn't suit your narrative that, maybe Arteta does coach us more pragmatically and doesn't take the handbrake off. Because if it's not on him, then why do we always talk about managers? It's just the players. Okay. Cool. So yeah, Leslie says we will win the CL. Keenan says Arteta lacks making those moves like Pep. He needs to be more confident in rotating in maverick moves like Zinchenko in the 8 to exploit and break down our opponents. Here to there says Arteta plays a massive role. The tactics, his personality. Very strange comment to say that this was not like Arteta doesn't change the coaching, and they've always want. Basically what you're saying is that we've always been trying to play this way, but the players just shit the bed. And for the last 2 seasons, we've played a more pragmatic way because the players want to, and Mikel is sitting there on his hands and they're just not doing what he's telling them to do. Interesting. Very interesting way of thinking about the game. Yeah, no. I agree. Victor St. Palmer got lifted to that world-class thing, and he is not. Jordan says Arteta is a good manager, but he sabotages himself with the overthinking and tampering. He just needs to win his first major trophy to be confident in his ability and to reach that elite level. And Karu Bell says this result doesn't change anything about our issues with Arteta. If he doesn't get it over the line, this doesn't matter. I don't think anybody thinks that it changes anything. I think it's just the way that some people react to wins versus how other people react. Some people don't think there's any hope left in the season. So there's like, it's like whatever. And then there are others that are still quietly hoping that we can still win something because, until the fat lady sings and all that. But I don't really think anybody has said that they think that the issues are just like gone. I think if anything, it highlights the issues that we have anyway, is that we do have this in us, but for a long time, especially this season, we have not played like a team that's confident in our ability to attack, to open up a little bit and be clinical and play good attacking football. That has eluded us all season. And I don't think that's because we've always been trying to play like this, but they're just not doing it. Like, be serious for 5 seconds. Let's see. Kwame says, leave her alone, Jacobs. Who's Jacobs? Jacob says, Jess, I think you need to chill. Your energy comes off very disrespectful when people have their opinion. If anybody thinks I've disrespected them, that's totally that's totally valid. I apologize if I've offended anybody. But nobody has really told me that. And I think you're maybe referring to Johnny, who's here like all the time. Johnny, if you feel disrespected, let me know. And I definitely will apologize for that. But to be honest, like, this is just how I am, so I'm not really going to change my vibes. You have plays, you have choices. So if you don't like the way that I deliver things, I don't know what to tell you. So, but if I've offended anybody, like, you can tell me and I will apologize because I don't want to offend you. But yeah, no. Kyle says, or Kwame says, Jacobs. Oh yeah, Johnny says, I don't feel disrespected. Be honest. That's all you need to be. This is somebody that's here like literally all the time. Like, I don't think me and Johnny like agree on like literally anything. I know me and Keenan don't usually agree either. But I think they, like most people, know that I'm not trying to be like mean or anything, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. So yeah, but it is what it is. Here to There says Jess is more diplomatic than me. Asante, thank you so much for becoming a member. Welcome. Mike says, that's not fair. Jess is more level-headed than most Arsenal online YouTubers. I feel like sometimes it's like, I don't feel like I'm any less like, aggressive in the way that I speak than anybody else. I just feel like maybe sometimes because I'm a woman, I'm expected to speak in a certain way, and I'm just energetic and combative and like to go back and forth. But I love my community, and we've been rocking for like 5 years now, and so they know they know my tea. They know how I am. We go back and forth. They know how to press my buttons. I know how to press theirs. Like, this is like my people's, like, so so yeah. I don't think, yeah, me and Johnny been going back and forth for years now. It's cool. Johnny says, I do agree with something Jess says about Arteta. I do think these failures are mentally affecting him. What I don't agree is that what he makes players confused. I don't think so. I think he chases the same. Okay. So yeah, that's where we disagree. That's definitely where we disagree. But I do think mentally Mikel is a little bit like, he's questioning who he is as a manager. And I think he just somebody said he overcorrected the other day. And I was like, that's probably like the best way to say it, is that after we failed the first season to win the title, he overcorrected. And I don't want us to go back to like the way we were under Wenger, where we were all attack and no defense, and we couldn't, because defense wins titles. So we know we need that, but nobody wins the league without like a potent attack. And so sometimes being too defensive takes away from us being able to create those chances that we need with unclinical forwards. So I think it's just that, so yeah. Let's see. Trini says, has it been 5 years already? I think so. Because I know I was doing my channel when Arteta got hired. So if he's been here for 5 years, then I know we've been doing this for 5 years. I started after Emery, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I was doing this when Emery was manager. So I think it has been 5 years. It's been a while. It's been a while, man. Keenan says, it's because you're a lady, double standard, sadly. Burmy says, is it just me or does Arteta seem to be more proactive with his subs in the UCL more earlier? I think that's because we're doing better. I think this season in the Champions League, some of our best results have actually come in this competition. I'm trying to think of when we struggled, but I think we pretty much like whizzed through the group stage for the most part, except for Inter and Atalanta. We had a great result against PSG, a great result against Sporting, a good result against Monaco, good result today. I think a lot of it has to do with the results that we're getting and that it seems like we're playing better in Europe. So I think in the Prem, I think he's hyper focused on the Prem, and maybe he's a little bit more like, because it's so unpredictable. Like, I think most of our games have pretty much gone how we expected them to in the Champions League. But in the Prem, they've been a little bit more unpredictable. So I think that lack of predictability and the fact that it could just change just like that in the Prem is just a different competition. And we're not doing as well in terms of like having 2 or 3 goals to the good kind of thing. I think that's kind of why, to be honest, we like the UCL time this season has been a lot more enjoyable than the Prem. And I think that's just because we're performing better, so we'll see how it goes. And this was, obviously Porto and PSV are 2 completely different sides, but man, that first knockout, that was something else. And so I enjoyed this a lot more. I enjoyed this shit a lot more. Keenan says the problem with Arteta is simple. He's got a great high pressure system with amazing possession. Sadly, it creates patterns of play where attacking players are always default to the safe pass. Pixel says, love the way Perisic has been humbled. Former Spurs telling us about winning. I was just like, the only reason why I don't want to say too much is because obviously he has played for better sides. So, and Spurs was kind of a blip for him. That being said, hold that. Because he was just, oh man, I was like, can't really super disagree, but I hate that it's coming from your mouth because you did play for Spurs at some point, Theo says Teta is obsessed with out of possession work. That's why he allocated so much resources towards recruiting workhorses and not attackers. Until we add ballers, we will only perform versus naive opposition like PSV. And I think that's a really, really good point is that, he went to the out of possession, the OOP, whatever. And really, we just need a better level of attacker. I think having players like, just having Ethan, I think that's why we're so like gassed about Ethan, not just he obviously is fabulous, but because he just does the things that attackers are meant to do and he creates his own moments. We don't have very many attackers that create their own moments. Everything is patterned. Everything is very coached. And so when you get into situations where good teams stop you from doing the things that you want to do, we have no way of like wiggling away from that. And so a better level of attacker is definitely needed. I think we all know that. And it needs to get sorted this summer. And that's why I'm glad we're bringing in hopefully a DOF that is well known for being able to bring in high quality attacking talent at striker. We are getting a striker. We're getting a striker. I know it. This guy has gotten like 10 strikers. He knows how to get a striker. So yeah, here to there says, look at the 2 goals Madrid scored today. Pure brilliance from Rodrigo and Brahim. We don't see that type of play. The only player that I feel like we're seeing it from recently is Ethan, so I don't disagree at all. Trini says, what are your best 3 moments of your 5 years on air with this community? Let's see. I'm trying to think. I feel like for a long part of the season where we were challenging, a lot of that was really, really, really enjoyable. I really liked that period. I liked when we were covering the preseason games and we were having those conversations of like, are we good or are we like really fucking good? When we beat Chelsea in preseason, it was like, we're good. Like, that's kind of crazy. I liked when we, I think it was when the first time we beat City at home, the time that we beat City at home. I love that day too. I love that day too. I think it lifted a lot of spirits, and we talked about how like that was going to be a big like mind thing for us to get over because we had like this big thing with City, and I think winning that game helped, and we had those conversations. It was nice to get the monkey off the back kind of thing. A really good day in this community also was when we beat Tottenham last season at away. And it was the game where they swore up and down that they were the much better side, but we just won. And it was when Kai Havertz decided to be Mesut Ozil for a day and hit that ball all the way down the pitch to Saka, and he took one touch and banged it in the back of the net. That was a great day as well. We bantered and we loved that day. That day was great. But I would say like the beginning, like before we got to the World Cup, that period of time was probably my favorite time with the channel because I think it was the first time that we were like all happy. It was like the first time where everybody was like, we're good, it's great, we're playing great football and stuff. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. People were happy about Xhaka for once. Jesus was giving us life. It was like the best forward performances we had been seeing from somebody since Alexis. Yeah, I think that was like a really, really good time. That was a really, really good time. I was in London at the time. It was just different vibes. Like, yeah, I like that time. I think the worst time was the summer after. I think that summer I nearly drove you guys crazy with the summer transfer window. I know I was freaking about the Declan Rice transfer. I was devastated that we got Kai Havertz. That summer, I was like mentally ill. So I apologize. Sorry. But yeah, it was the beginning of that season was quite literally the best. That was like we were like in our peak. And then after, like when cool things happened. I like the stream that we did after something happened with Mikel and he got off. Like we got off of something. Like they tried to put something on us and then we got away with it. And I did the stream with the OJ Simpson thing about when if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. All that stuff. Like, yeah, we've had some good moments. Alpha says most teams sit deep against us in the league and hence curtailing our ability to hit on transitions. Do you remember Palace away? Wasn't it like tonight's game? Folks should stop blaming the coach. Okay. All right. So Mikel, just for the last 2 seasons, has not made us more pragmatic, has not brought in players that make us more out of possession based. He's not making us more, he's not asking players to be a little bit more careful with the ball so that we don't get hit on the break because he knows that we're going to be playing against these deep blocks. It's just the players, it's not the manager. Yeah. All right. Cool. Johan says, Jess, are you convinced by the new format of the I like it? I like it. I had no problems with the new format. I think it works. I think you have better opponents and better games, better viewing. Right off the bat, there's more jeopardy for the big teams, which is great because you saw so many of them like City really struggle, and even like Real Madrid had to like really like fight to get in there. So yeah, like I think the new format makes a lot of sense, and sometimes change is good. I know that a lot of times, like even I could be like old man shouting at cloud, like, "Oh, this is not game's gone. This is not what I grew up with. Like this is blah blah blah." But sometimes changes actually do work, and I think the new format is better. To be honest. So yeah. Let's see. Johnny says, I am so annoyed the attacking coaches only told Jesus to blast it by the end of November. If they would have told him that from the summer, I think things would have slightly different today. Suppositions. Here to There says, yes, 2022, 2023, pre-World Cup prior to Jesus. I mean, it was just like there was no real pressure. We were playing really good. It was like everything had come together like perfectly. And I remember doing the stream because we had several really good games in preseason. And I remember doing the stream after the Chelsea game, and I was like, are we good? Like, I'm scared. Like, we actually look like insane. And we were, so yeah. Let's see. Alpha says we have been blistering in Europe this season because most teams come out and play Europe, even Girona. I forgot about we played Girona. Is it any surprise that the two games where we didn't score was against Atalanta and Inter? No, it's not. And I completely understand what you're trying to say. I just think there's too much evidence whether teams are sitting back or whether they're not. Like, there are games in between the games that we play against Crystal Palace and, this game that teams don't, is like, just because it's like, well, I get what you're trying to say, but there's just too much evidence that we went into, even if people are not sitting in mid to low blocks. It's not like anytime a team is not sitting in a mid to low block, we play well. It's not that. Every single team that we play does not play in a mid to low block. But we all know that there's going to be a theme, whether it's a mid to low block or not. There's the rare opportunity, especially like now it's getting even fewer and far between, where we get the Sporting, we get it's every team in the Premier League does not sit in against us. Every single one does not sit against us. They just don't, so I don't really know where this whole idea is like, well, okay, well, because we did well against Crystal Palace and we did well against freaking so and so and so and so. Like, here, I'll even go back, right? In the 2022-2023 season, in the second half of the season, when people had clocked us, there were teams that sat in against us. I remember when we dropped points right after the World Cup against Everton away from home. It was like 0-0 or something like that. But the way that we played then still was not like the way that we play now. It's completely different. We hit low blocks. When we played against Bournemouth when we won 3-2 or whatever it was, the madness, the 4-3 or whatever, they sat in a low block, but the attack was so much different. We still attacked with numbers. We passed the ball quickly. So this whole idea that, it's like we would just play like this all the time if we just weren't playing against mid to low blocks. That's not true, because we've seen us actually be able to break down deep, mid to deep blocks 2 seasons ago, but the way that we attack them are completely different than now. Completely different. We hit low blocks at the back end of that season because they clocked us. They had been way at the World Cup. They were like, we're going to play Arsenal in the second half of the season, so we need to know what we're going to do against them. So let's sit a little bit deeper. We came up against deep blocks. I have another example. Everton at home in the second half of that season. We bopped them 4-0 or some nonsense like that. And I remember like Saka stealed the ball off of one of their players in the back line, and Martinelli put it in the back of the net. Saka scored a goal. We beat them 4-0, and they sat in a deep block. Guys, just because we're the odd time this season we do better when there's no mid to deep block or whatever, doesn't mean that Arteta's just like not telling them to do this, because we've seen us attack deep blocks differently. Does that make sense? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not getting where this whole idea that Arteta's coaching them perfectly and there's no problems with Mikel. The players are just not doing what they're meant to. We don't even put the same amount of players up. Arteta's even when we're chasing games, instead of adding an attacker, like when we needed a goal against Manchester City 2 seasons ago, or Manchester United 2 seasons ago, he didn't just change the fullback. He put on Nketiah and had Jesus and Nketiah out there. He took off a fullback. Now he just changes the DM or changes the fullback. Mikel has changed. He has changed. He has changed. He is different now. Here to There says Brighton, Fulham, Villa didn't sit in against us. I think the refs and teams have worked us out on set pieces and we haven't coped. So yeah. But anyways, let's put a pin in that. I think that's a longer discussion for another day about whether or not Mikel is just he's coaching us exactly the same, but the players are letting him down somehow or something like that. I think that's a different conversation for a different day, but I guess I would say if that's the case, then explain to me why, even when we're going up against deep blocks, we do it differently than we did 2 seasons ago. And why is it the case that when we need a goal, instead of adding another attacker, he adds a different defender or a different CDM or different fullback? That's so different than what Mikel used to do. So I'm having a hard time coming to grips with this idea that Mikel hasn't changed at all, and he's not coaching us to be more pragmatic. But like that is like I haven't heard anybody say that, so that's interesting. So yeah, but Johnny says Liverpool plays PSG tomorrow. That's going to be a hard game. What time does that game come on? Let me see. The only reason why I'm asking is would anybody be interested in a watch along for that game? It doesn't have anything to do with us. It could be fun. Let's see. They play tomorrow at 12. 12 my time, 8 your guys' time. I think, yeah, a watch along could probably be cool. A watch along on here. So I'm very interested to see how Liverpool do away. If they bop them, it's over. It's over. But PSG right now have one of the best attacks in Europe. So I would love to see it. But yeah, I think I will do a watch along for that. So we'll do a watch along and we'll chit chat. We could talk about Arsenal and stuff while we watch the game. Does that sound good? Cool. Let's do that. So let's plan to reconvene around that time. Bring your questions about Berta, about Arsenal. We can continue the conversation about whether or not Mikel has changed over the last couple of years. Who do we think is who's actually to blame for all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about all that during the watch along. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. Again, I mean no harm by the way that I come across. If I'm too aggressive for your taste, I am sorry, but that's just how I am. But hopefully you'll come back for more. All right. Talk to you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.